NEWSLINE with Faraz Shauketaly.
And a jolly good morning to you, and I hope you had a lovely break. This is NEWSLINE, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo, broadcasting on Tv1, which of course is a proud member of the Capital Marriage Group. And once again, we trust you all had an excellent break. Happy New Year to all our viewers. And let's have a bit more hope in what is in store for us in terms of economic development and political progression, shall we call it. But talking about political progression, there's been something that not many people know a lot about: proroguement of Parliament. To explain that, its effects, and why it may or may not, or should not have been done, is Mr. Rusiripala Tennekoon. Very good morning to you, Mr. Tennekoon.
Good morning. Iborn.
Iborn, indeed. It's Jaweva. We, the people, have hope.
Yes.
That's one thing that Sri Lanka has copious quantities of.
Yes.
Hope.
Yeah.
Hope.
First day of the single New Year.
Indeed.
We must live in hope.
We must, because where there is no hope, there is no life.
Yes, sure.
And once people tire of hope, I suppose they tire of life.
Yes, of course.
But why is it that Sri Lanka needs to have so much of hope? What's going on in Parliament? What is this funny word? Proroguement. It's not the kind of word you hear every day. I'll take a bet it hasn't been mentioned in a year in any of the English newspapers.
Yeah. Yes, so, yes, it
what
is
so.
It? I agree. But it is something there for us. It is part of the parliamentary affairs.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something very strange or unusual.
Right.
Normally, at the end of a session of a parliament, when elections are imminent,
yeah,
a dissolution takes place.
right.
And prior to the dissolution, a prorogation takes place.
Ah.
And this is provided for in the constitution very clearly. The President, the Governor General, Queen, whoever it may be, that's the ultimate authority,
yeah,
has the power by proclamation to prorogue the Parliament.
Right. So in a way, proroguing Parliament is another way of saying that parliamentary sittings are suspended.
No, it goes a little beyond.
Right.
That refers to adjournment of the Parliament. When the sittings are temporarily suspended until they are resumed during the same session.
So what is
that is called adjournment.
Right. So what is the difference between adjournment and proroguement?
Prorogation is you end the session.
The parliamentary session.
When the Parliament commences after a prorogation,
yeah,
it is a completely new session of the Parliament.
Yeah.
Normally, unless otherwise it is agreed upon by the Parliament, the business that the Parliament was conducting immediately prior to the prorogation ceases or comes to an end or lapses.
Right.
And you have to recommence all the things, including bills, all the committees.
Also, it all comes to an end.
Yeah, definitely, because all the committees that were functioning in the Parliament prior to the prorogation,
that's it. It's finished.
They are totally stopped, and you have to start again.
Can you start from where you left off?
No, they have to start afresh.
So you're going to appoint a new committee, a new COPE committee, and so on.
That's right. But in the Sri Lankan, in our constitution, it's slightly different. But this is the normal situation. Prorogation means everything comes to an end. It terminates the business. Then it sort of relieves the MPs from their normal day-to-day activities as parliamentarians.
So they get even more time.
They have more time. It's complete freedom for them. They are no more.
As it is, they've got a lot of time.
They are no more treated as official MPs. They are MPs, all right.
And but my other point, I suppose, I must ask this question, otherwise it's not Newsline. Do their benefits continue to accrue to them?
Of course, they remain MPs.
So they get their salaries, they get their perks, they get their cars, their fuel, their security,
But
their secretaries.
Yes, they are relieved of their normal duties as an MP. But
So
they
that means
continue to get their perks.
So including their security detail, so they can get through the flyover very quickly.
I think so. I think that those are the details. But anyway, rightly speaking, they are relieved of their parliamentary duties as MPs.
Okay. So they can't legislate. They can't discuss
No. Only thing, it's a prorogation. There is one very significant thing. When it comes to prorogation, it can't be indefinite. In the Act itself, it says when you prorogue the Parliament, it cannot be for a period of more than 2 months. It is specified.
And the date this time given is?
This time it's even shorter, 8th of May or 6th of May. So that means it's a very short period.
Right.
It's a very short period. And then the Parliament...
Why is this? Is it to allow them to all to go off on holiday? Why?
Normally during New Year seasons and all, Parliament takes holidays, but I think this prorogation means something beyond. Faraz, if you remember correct, just imagine recall the situation just prior to this prorogation in Parliament, immediately following the no confidence motion against the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
I don't call it the no confidence motion against the Prime Minister, but no confidence motion against the performance of a minister who has not done his part of the work and who is responsible. So that after that no confidence motion, then there was a situation where certain cabinet MPs, members who were in the government, voted against that, voted with the motion against the Prime Minister.
Yes.
So now they, on their own, in a very, very highly appreciable democratic manner, they decided, no, we will tender our resignation.
Chandima Veerakodi said, we tried our best to govern together, and therefore we had to do what we had to do.
No, two things. One is, these cabinet ministers and those in the government who voted for the motion, the no confidence motion, they stood by their principles. That is, they announced earlier that we are going, they made public statements, and there were various decisions at different forums which are reported in the media, that's all we know, that they were to take a decision in support of the no confidence motion because they were part and parcel of the subject matter that dealt with the no confidence motion.
I see.
From the beginning, they sat in committees, they passed resolutions, they wanted commissions appointed, they wanted parliamentary debates, they wanted COPE committees, all that. So they were part and parcel of this whole affair, the episode. They stood by what they said, and I think the whole country, the members of the public, the voters in general, and the party members to the party that belongs to the party of these ministers and MPs, they will highly respect these people for standing by their statements and by their proclamations.
Indeed. Actually, the action was very commendable, that they took a stance and they stuck with it and they openly said it instead of pussyfooting around.
Of course, now see, it sets an example.
Now that's leadership.
That's exactly democracy, upholding democracy to the very letter of democracy. Now this is seen quite serious contrast to what the Prime Minister did now. Now the Prime Minister has to stand, he decided to face a no confidence motion.
Well, I don't think he decided, he had no choice.
He had no choice. But then he should have avoided all this confusion and allowed this national government to continue. If only he decided to stand down. and then paved the way.
What is it? Would it have been sufficient if he stood down from being the Prime Minister only, or did they want him out of the cabinet full stop?
That's a detail, you know. I mean, after all, a cabinet, to remain in the cabinet or remain as an advisor is a detail.
Yeah.
But then he has definitely two important responsibilities. One was, as the Prime Minister, did he use his office to either suppress or to do something which he should not have done?
Yeah.
That is one part.
Yeah.
Then secondly, as the minister in charge of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka,
Yeah.
when this fiasco happened,
Yeah.
you see, he had a responsibility by him,
Yeah.
to which he is answerable to the parliament, he is answerable to the public, he is answerable to the country. So on those two counts,
Yeah.
the country expected him to act democratically. Now see the contrast here. These cabinet ministers, these MPs, who being on the government side, because they voted with the no confidence motion, they decided on their own, voluntarily, to leave the government.
But Mr. Rusiripala, may I put to you a counter position that whilst the Prime Minister perhaps recognized that he had been taken for a ride by his advisors and he had relied on their assurances in terms of the bond, Mahendran and that fellow Samarasiri. Now, the counterpoint could be that the wider picture was that what would have happened if he had stepped down, or if this whole unity government crumbled even before it started, and then what would have been the alternative? The alternative would have been perhaps that the people who were defeated, Mahinda Rajapaksa and company, would have then somehow managed to get themselves a majority in parliament and change what the public wanted. The public wanted change. That's why Mr. Rajapaksa was voted out of office. So by this inaction, don't you think that if he took some other form of action, that there was a possibility that the parliamentary process, the balance would have changed and gone back to the losers?
It's a remote possibility, but generally, Faraz, you will agree that in such an event, if the Prime Minister decided to act so, he should have done it with the consensus of his party, with the consensus of the rest of the members in the unity government, with the consensus of the President himself. He could have done that.
Yes.
So when a person does that, that doesn't leave room for all these other unexpected things to happen. No?
Right.
They will come to some understanding. This is how the government continues hereafter, and this is how we contribute to it. This is how we maintain the unity. So therefore, it's a very remote chance,
right,
for what that anticipated to happen.
Yes.
Yes.
So basically what you're saying is the Prime Minister, as the Minister in charge of the Central Bank, for example, he didn't act. And his inaction actually cost very much more. Because if he had acted soon after the first bond, and if he'd caught Mahendran out at that time, then we wouldn't have had recourse to this bond that happened in March 2016. Two more bonds.
We have discussed this enough and enough,
yes,
for us. I think everybody in the country knows.
Excepting Mr. Wickramasinghe, apparently.
No, I think he himself knows it. I don't know, due to some attitudinal issue or something like that, he has not decided to act in the way that he should have. But you see, you forget the public, you forget the commentators, you forget the media. What about the findings of the Commission of Inquiry? Please pay attention to this. The Commission of Inquiry, in no uncertain terms, expressed their views in their report, said that the Prime Minister's performance would have been otherwise.
Had he been blah blah blah.
Yeah, I mean, this is the least that they could say in a country like ours, you know, in a democracy like ours, without embarrassing anybody, but they said what they have to say.
But I do wish, Mr. Rusiripala, I'm sure you wish it too, that they could have been a little bit more open like you have been and several others have been on Newsline. On that score, let's go for a short break. We'll be back. Don't go away. This is Newsline.
Shauketaly.
And welcome back to Newsline, where we are in the company of Mr. Rusiripala Tennekoon. A message here from somebody in Kandy, who they say they're in Kandy. Prorogation gives breathing space to the President to tide over a crisis, somewhat like President Premadasa did when the impeachment motion was being tabled. All pending bills, like the amendment to the Judicature Act, the Audit Bill, have lapsed. Will President Sirisena make a policy statement at the start of the new session? What do you say about that?
No, that is, I don't think he's correct per se, because it definitely gives some space to the President of the country to, when the Parliament is in disarray, when there is so much of confusion in the Parliament, for him to make adjustments. I mean, it is an open thing. Everybody knows that, you know, the government's position is not very clear after the no confidence motion, because they had a unity government. What happens to this unity is a matter that we are yet to see. So to that extent, it gives some breathing space, all right. But his position about these bills and all that being lapsed is not correct, because, you know, in the 19th Amendment, the prorogation of Parliament comes within under Article 70 of the existing old Constitution. Only one part of this Constitution has been amended under Section 19, under the 19th Amendment. That is the subsection 1 of 70. That is the dissolution of the Parliament, which was earlier after 1 year, now has been extended to 4.5 years. That is the only thing that was changed in the 19th Amendment with regard to the prorogation and the dissolution of Parliament. But our Constitution, what remains today after the 19th Amendment, the same section, Part 2 says, all matters, number 4, I think you can read it, all matters which, having been duly brought before Parliament, have not been disposed of at the time of the prorogation of Parliament, may be proceeded with during the next session. So he need not fear that all those bills and other important things have gone down the drain. It's not so. But maybe like the no confidence motions that were leveled against the cabinet ministers, such things will go down the drain. Such things, of course, did not have the approval of their own party. Some members, you know, they rushed to submit no confidence motions. And the Prime Minister himself said, no, this is not the way to put it and all that, you know. So there was hardly any agreement on those matters. Such things will go down the drain.
Now, Mr. Rusiripala, 41 years in unbroken service in Parliament is no mean feat. And Ranil Wickremesinghe has shown what a remarkable chap he is, because he's been in Parliament 41 years. He lost the, he won the no confidence motion against him, and do you think his battles are over?
I think the battle is over, but the war has not come to an end.
It hasn't.
It hasn't. The war continues.
Why? Well, how come he? How come? I really want to understand the persona here. How come, after so many defeats and so on, how come he still managed to get the UNP members who matter to back him as the leader? How come?
You see, now from what we read in the reports, news reports and the media reports, we can see there is utter confusion in their party. Now this is now there are two aspects to this now. What happens in the Parliament, what happens in their own party. You see, their party also is equally in disarray, because from if what we read in the media reports, they are correct, and they are the true positions, there is utter confusion in that party. What they say and what they expected as a radical change to have undergone in that party has not, according to them, has happened. So it is yet to happen. Until that happens, it's a pending matter. When it is a pending matter, it remains an unresolved issue. Therefore, what is happening in the UNP today has not come to an end. So therefore, that is why I say the war is not over. There is definitely an issue. You know what you have been repeatedly saying about this 40 years leadership and how he managed all this time to remain in power, remain at the helm. You know, irrespective of the various things that committees and other things for reorganizations being appointed. You know, this has now come to the open, very open.
And is it a bit of a joke?
It sounds, but it's a matter for the party, no?
Yeah, it's a party matter.
I mean, it's
are you a member of the United National Party?
I was not a member.
Are you now?
I am not a member of the United.
Right. Well, I'm not either.
Yes.
But I'd like to.
Yes.
But I can't because you know. I can't because I don't believe the leaders are good. But anyway, that's not the point. There's another question here. Is the Prime Minister under pressure from the sponsors who brought about regime change to continue Yarpal in the government? Who do you think these sponsors are? Are they?
I think
is this a foreign hand? The Western powers.
I think, of course, there is some element of truth in that, because that we know for a fact that there has been some foreign interest about the affairs of our country, and for that matter, every country has to some extent. You know, there will be some foreign country or some foreign force that will be interested about the affairs of another country. But in the case of our country, it was a very serious state of affairs. They interfered into the continuation of different governments and eras and periods, and they wanted certain changes brought, and they also maneuvered and manipulated by using international pressure on it. The GSP cancellations and, you know, the human rights situations, Geneva proclamations, all those things played a role. And that is definitely international interference.
Indeed.
That will have certainly an effect. But then, whatever the international interferences are, the President has taken the right step at the right moment in proroguing the Parliament, because that leaves the entire gamut of the whole operation open for many things to happen. Now, what do you know? What do you think can happen after the prorogation? I mean, we can end up with a completely new cabinet.
Indeed.
We can end up with a completely new cabinet with the assignment of new subjects on a scientific basis, as they say.
And maybe that is what is on President Sirisena's mind. No,
that is in the mind of everybody in this country. I mean, we were in
and now that Mr. Sirisena has just arrived in London about a couple of hours ago, he will now be exposed to this wonderful breadth of democracy and influence, hopefully.
And he is a very much tolerated person as a leader of a country.
Indeed, they love him.
By the Commonwealth as well as the other leaders. So I trust that.
And that should be a source of pride for us as a country.
Definitely. And I think that will serve the purpose, because he will be refreshed in his mind to see how the Commonwealth is functioning, how the Commonwealth leaders are, taking up matters, taking up issues.
Did you watch that clip on YouTube with and that indicated the rapport that President Ronald Reagan had with President J.R. Jayawardeneh when President J.R. took the little baby elephant and gave it to the Lord of the White House?
I saw that. But coming back to this point, Faraz, about the prorogation and the after effects, don't forget, the Constitution does not, most of the people today, I read in the social media, that the President has no powers to remove the Prime Minister.
I know that you've steadfastly disagreed with that.
I totally disagree. I pointed out certain aspects and certain sections of the Constitution in black and white.
Yes, because you say that in the Sinhalese there is provision for removal.
There is. In fact, very recently also there is an ongoing ongoing sort of debate in the social media. Some people say, I think they are made to say that, you know, the president has no powers. Definitely he has powers, you know, directly and indirectly both. Now, remember that this prorogation of the parliament is one way of dissolving the existing cabinet. When the entire cabinet goes out,
yeah,
and with new functions assigned, it becomes a new cabinet, which under the amended constitution even provides that it calls for the appointment of a new prime minister and a new cabinet. The composition, the assignment of subjects, and the appointment of the prime minister to be followed accordingly, all that will take place after the new cabinet is formed during the period of the prorogation, which will be announced after the prorogation.
Somehow, I think that explanation is going to hit the news later on today.
Yes.
7:26 and a little bit the time now. Now, Mr. Rusiripala, I need to have this little discussion with you. And I'm not trying to have anyone, I'm not trying to have the bacon now. But, here you go. More than 90% of the items listed in the vote of no confidence, that motion,
yes,
was to do with the bond.
Yes.
And several items there refer to the Prime Minister's inaction as Minister in charge, right from the beginning, that he nominated this person, and so on and so forth and so on. Therefore, does it follow that there is some prima facie case against the Prime Minister to suggest that his probity is questioned?
Of course, you know, unfortunate thing Faraz is.
Or I can be even more blunt. I can ask you, does that mean that the Prime Minister is a rogue?
No, I will not comment on that in that form, but let me say this. Now, it's a very unfortunate thing what happened in the Parliament. You know, as expected by all of us, you, me and everybody, free-thinking people, we knew that it is not going to be a scientifically, logically approached debate that will take place. It was slinging mud here and there, confusion, attacking each other. Instead, if the parliamentarians decided and chose to deal with the allegations that they levelled against the Prime Minister,
step by step,
one by one, substantiated with factual situations and evidence, you know, at least that could have gone to the Hansard.
Indeed.
That's a permanent record in the history of this country, which they overlooked. You know, this slinging
by design, probably.
Definitely, no. They were provoked not to do that. Indeed. And unfortunately, some of the people who participated in the debate, ultimately they were defending themselves. They were not criticizing the Prime Minister. They were defending themselves. I didn't do that. I didn't do this. Very unfortunate in this Parliament. This Parliament needs some MPs, at least, who will logically approach a subject, at least for the purpose of the future generations, to record and see in the future what has transpired as business in this Parliament.
You know, Mr. Rusiripala, it's the end of half an hour, but I've thoroughly been informed, and thank you for shedding light on several matters here. You know, thank you very much. I hope you and your family will have a wonderful new year.
Thank you, Faraz.
Especially your little granddaughter, who's probably not far from coming on our seat soon. Thank you very much, Mr. Rusiripala. That is the end of Newsline this morning. Take care and God bless.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.